Before Mahnaz became a UX designer, she was teaching English to kids in China. Then COVID hit. Everything collapsed at once. She had to move back to Iran. No job, no clear path forward. With nothing but time and uncertainty, she started learning UX on her own. And that decision eventually brought her to the US, where she rebuilt her life and her career from scratch. Most of us talk about ambiguity like it's a design challenge. Mahnaz actually lived it, and it completely changes the way that she shows up at work, the way she collaborates and pushes past that order taker box designers get stuck in. So if you ever felt overwhelmed by uncertainty or unsure how to grow your influence, stick around, because today's episode is going to bring a little bit of perspective that you won't hear in most design conversations. What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome. I am super stoked to have you. How often do you stare at a blank Figma canvas unsure where to start? This episode is brought to you by Mobbin, the ultimate UI and UX design inspiration library. Mobbin gives you instant access to over 400,000 beautifully designed UI screens and user flows from apps you love, and content is added weekly, so you never have to start from scratch again. Quickly find exactly what you need, search by app category, UI patterns, or even specific features. My team and I use Mobbin daily at work to find useful patterns, and it helps my team work much more efficiently. And honestly, I can't imagine kicking off a new feature without Mobbin. You ready to level up your design process? Visit mobbin.com/beyondux to get 20% off Mobbin Pro and never run out of inspiration again. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Roddy, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, Tino, Adina, and Zoe for all their support. And for more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. And of course, if you think the show is worth sharing, then tell your mom and them. My guest today, Mahnaz, has lived through volatility. She's lived through uncertainty and ambiguity, and at a level that most product teams never even see. She's lived it in real life. In the conversation today, I'm really excited. We're going to talk about how those experiences shape her design instincts and her courage at work and her desire to play a meaningful role, not just as a designer, but as somebody shaping how teams move through the unknown. Mahnaz Hajesmaeili is a product designer specializing in human-centered AI-powered experiences. She leads AI experience and innovation at Swarm Community and designs complex systems at Digital Transformation Solutions. With a background in emerging media, machine learning, and behavioral design, she focuses on creating practical, responsible ways for people to work with AI. She's the creator of UX Onward, co-teaches the AI-powered behavioral design sprint on Maven, hosts the Swarmathon podcast on AI's role in global challenges, and co-hosts Designathon, a show about the intersection of AI and design. Her work centers on making intelligent tools more accessible, ethical, and genuinely useful for diverse communities. Mahnaz, welcome to Beyond UX Design. I am so excited to have you on and learn a bunch of stuff from you all about VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. Welcome to Beyond UX Design. I am so excited to have you on. How's it going?
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I'm so glad to be here with you, and I can't wait for our conversation.
Right on. Well, so I know I sort of like in the cold open, I kind of mentioned about like working in China, being from Iran, COVID hits, all this stuff. If I want to hear more about your experience, but when we first talked, I was like, good God, if this like your life doesn't just scream VUCA, I don't know what does. And there's so much I think that we can learn from you and your personal experiences and apply that to our design careers, especially with all the uncertainty around AI and all the design tools and everything else. So anyway, I know I read that little cold open, a little bit about your bio, but you've got a really fascinating backstory. Why don't you just first tell us a little bit about you and your story? I'd love to hear about that. And then ultimately, let's dig into how your VUCA life has influenced how you do your job.
Okay, so I think as a girl living in Iran, I was living through volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And I lived VUCA. I was learning how to go through this as a young girl, and I was always want to go beyond what I am in life limited to, and learning about other things, getting into different stuff that are not like my business even. So I was very curious and I wanted to know it all. So I was experiencing different things, and all of this took me to China. And in China, I was like teaching English to children, and I was learning Chinese language, and I was building my life, knowing that I can never become a permanent resident in China and I can never become Chinese in no way. Like, I don't know if you know
Oh,
about
I don't
this,
think I
but
realized. Is it impossible to get like Chinese
yeah,
citizenship? Oh, wow. I had no
it's
idea.
kind of impossible, like for foreigners to become Chinese or get the China's permanent residency.
I'm not surprised, like, knowing what I know about China. I didn't
Yeah.
know that, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And living there, building a life, knowing all of this was kind of living in ambiguity and like uncertainty and all this VUCA has like inside it. So, but I was having my life and I was finding my way through everything. And then COVID hit, and it was the time that I met someone that I can say right now that he was my soulmate, and I fell in love. When COVID hit, he had to come back to. He wasn't in China anymore. I was in China. He was traveling around the world backpacking, and he had to come back. Came back to Iran, and then I had to decide: should I go back to Iran? Is this the right choice? Is this even love? I just met this person. It's been about a month that I've met this person. Like, how can I be certain that this is true love? Like, what if everything's go wrong? And it was so many questions that I had at that moment, but I decided to go to Iran and be with him. So I came back and I lived with him during the COVID. We rented a small apartment. I didn't let my parents know that I came back so I can live with him because Iranian parents, they don't let you live with your boyfriend, with a person that you met for a month, specifically. And yeah, so I've been living with him. And I was thinking that, okay, COVID will end in a month or two. And I can go back to my life in China and we can go back together and live there together. But it continued and it continued. And it was like a never ending situation. And everything was changing so fast. We were living with our savings and like our money was running out. Like countries start like changing their rules, like about they were like closing the borders, they were like canceling the flights, and everything was going to a complete lockdown everywhere around the world. So we didn't know when it's all going to end and what should we do. So as a person that I had a complete life somewhere else in another country that I don't have access to it right now, I was so lost. I didn't know what to do. And so all we were doing is having fun and just like spending the time so we can go back. So it was a time that I was scrolling through Instagram and I found this person who pivot to UX and changing her own career completely and diving into new thing that she was like explaining it as something that everyone can do it. And no matter what is your background, no matter that you don't know anything about coding or technology, you can do it. And I was always into technology, and living in China was made me more interested because in China, everything's about technology and you will get like the most recent like technology in anything, no matter what you're doing. And they have this app, I want to mention this, called WeChat, and you can do everything with that. Like with this app, you don't need any other applications on your phone. You can go shopping, this is social media, shopping, wallets, financial management, everything. And I was so fascinated by that technology and I wanted to get into that. But I was always telling myself, okay, you have no idea what are these? You had your bachelor's in English literature, which has nothing to do with technology. So yeah, I was so unsure and uncertain about doing this, but she was very assuring, like telling that this has nothing to do with your background. And I started learning it. So I took a course and started to diving into UX all by myself and learning different things. And as I go further, I really found out, okay, this is what I want because it's like satisfy my curiosity because it has something to do with everything kind of, and you are not limited to one specific task to do. And yeah, it was very interesting for me. So I kept learning and I had a lot of time on my hand at that time. Like during lockdown, you can't do anything else. Like so it was the time that like China wasn't clear about when they're going to open the borders, and the university that I was studying in China, they told me that we send you a document and you should quit studying here because we don't know when the border is going to open and we can have you back. So I kind of had to sign that. And I also told my friends that stayed there during COVID to go and get back my house because it was a rented house and I was paying rent, and so I didn't want to pay more rent. So it was like kind of getting me separated, like getting me separate from the life that I had there, and helped me to like start a new life. But I was still attached to what I had there. All my stuff were there, my job, my, I don't know, everything,
Yeah, yeah,
my
yeah.
friends. So UX kind of helped me to get distracted and get into a new field that I felt that I like it. And then we decided to go to another country, living in another country. And we weren't specific about going to US. So one of the ways that you can immigrate from a country to another country is through study. So I looked for universities all around the world, Europe, especially Europe, Canada, and US, because these are the countries that were still open to the students, accepting the students, and their border weren't closed. And yeah, and I got accepted in a university in the US. So that's why I came here.
I love this story mostly because, when we think about software, right, and we think about design teams, like so many design teams or designers, I guess, they freak out and oh, we don't have a vision. We don't have this. Like my boss doesn't tell me what to do. I don't blah, blah, blah. And that kind of stuff keeps us up at night. And when I hear your story, I think like, is the stuff we're dealing with at work really all that bad? And so my question for you is, when all the stuff you've dealt with, now that you've been designing now for almost half a decade, what kinds of things go through your head? I'm curious when when you hear other designers, having, little like tantrums that, they don't have a North Star, they don't have a vision, or their boss is changing their mind, or a stakeholder changes their mind and they flip out. I'm curious what kind of things go through your head when you hear people say that. Are you like, shut up, do you really know how good you have it? Like what kind of things go through your head when you hear other designers complaining about things like that?
That's a very interesting point. And I didn't know this about myself until I got this feedback from everyone that you are so adaptable, you are so flexible. How can you be so calm when someone like completely reject your design and saying like do it all over again? And I was like, okay, isn't this how it works? Like,
Isn't this part of the job? Yeah.
I thought that like everything is like this. So it's not that you do something and people get like, okay, this is perfect and we accept it. So it wasn't for me this way like my whole life. I knew that when I get to a country, it's not that they're gonna be a red carpet that I'm going to that country and I'm gonna have the best life of that I can imagine there. I always had a better life in my own country, like excluding the rules and the government and the old religious like thoughts and everything. I had a better life living with family, friends, all the familiarity that I had around me. So it wasn't an easy choice. And I always had this thing that I'm going to get rejected. I expected to get rejected. I'm going to be behaved like a stranger. I'm not going to be welcome sometimes. And so these are the things that you prepare yourself when you are as an immigrant. And I think that's why I have this same feeling at the workspace as well. But it also it was affecting my confidence. So I kind of looking for ways to balance this. Like I know this is good to be adaptable, but you shouldn't be order taker and not having your opinion and not getting involved into things. And this was the thing that I was always doing in my life. Like I was looking for rules to break, like even invisible ones that like everyone accepting without asking why, and everyone's doing without like questioning it. So yeah, I said, okay, I need to find this. I need to look for a way that break this cycle. I don't want to just be flexible and accepting. I want to get involved in more things around a company, around a team. And I want to know what everyone in a team is doing. And I want to understand what they're doing. And so I can get involved in their tasks as well. So that's why I started learning different things, machine learning, coding, like even UI design that I didn't really like that well at the beginning. And I think most UX designers don't like that much. But I throw myself through different stuff and challenged myself to learn these things because I wanted to get involved in every aspect of a product. And I wanted to know things. And recently I'm learning about leadership and management. So I want to get into that place too. I know it can sound annoying, but people like it actually. People like when you bring a different point of view into their work and they can see it from a different perspective. So it also challenges them.
Yeah, I love that. So let me ask you this, because when we first talked, you mentioned specifically, wanting to talk about how one of the things you wanted to talk about for your episode was how VUCA and your experience at Shape. And I'm curious, like VUCA is not something a lot of designers know. Like I am certainly like trying to preach the gospel, I guess, of VUCA and how this applies to work, but it's not something I hear a lot of other designers talk about. And so I'm curious, was VUCA like an actual thing that you knew about when you were studying in school? Because it is kind of more of like an academic thing a lot of times. Or is this something you didn't really find until you started doing design? When did you discover VUCA, and how, I'm curious, like at what point did you start like applying some of the principles to help navigate those things? Was it earlier in your life or later in your career, or like when did you discover that?
So I learned about VUCA from your book,
Oh,
Beyond
wow.
UX Design.
Okay.
And it wasn't like that I knew about it. Yeah. And I was really fascinated by someone finally saying this like very clear and out loud in a design book, because you're always seeing these things like learn to articulate your decisions and like learn to manage stakeholders. But those are important too. But no one was ever talking about like how these situations are different from what we read in the books, and like, what is like we imagine the design is. We think that we're going to take a task, we're going to complete it, and we're going to get like some feedback and change like some small things, and then we're going to deliver it to the dev, and that's all. But it's not how it works. Sometimes the CEO even don't know what they want, and you need to help them to understand what they want. So this is, yeah, I think I answered your question.
Yeah, no,
I shouldn't go first.
No, that's perfect. Well, I appreciate that first, and I'm glad that it resonated with you. That's the whole point of the book. Is the whole reason I wrote the book. It certainly wasn't to make any money. But one of the things that I would love to sort of dig into is like, once you found out about this framework in VUCA, like, did it change how you approached the various aspects of, well, your personal life, obviously, but like also work itself? And my hope with the book, at least, was to name it, like, volatility is very different from ambiguity, and complexity is very different from uncertainty. And having a name for it and a framework that allows us to think about it in different ways and then apply a system of thinking to maybe not overcome it, because you're never going to overcome it. So those things exist, but to navigate it, I think, is really the key there, is to figure out how to navigate. I'm curious, taking that VUCA framework, how has that kind of helped you to, one, put a name on it and navigate your personal stuff and make, your personal life a little bit easier, maybe less stressful, perhaps, is maybe the goal, and then also apply that to work? Is that something that you've been kind of thinking about?
So yeah, it's really helped me to clarify things in a company, like clarifying the situation, the context that I'm in, and defining different things like having volatility. It's like that, it's not always stable. and people can change their decisions all the time. And it's not about you or your design or your decisions. It's about their own choices and having a company kind of. And uncertainty is like they themselves don't know sometimes what they want and what journey, what road they want to take. And everything's always, it's so complex in these companies because especially as startups, and you can't always get like how these systems are working together, how these people are connected together, who is managing who. And also the way is not clear. You don't know where this product is going. It can become very successful or it can fail. And it's also not about you and your design, because design is not, I don't think design is something that can fail a product. It's part of it, but it's not the whole thing. So, as a designer in a company, I found out that I should be able to create my own system, not for my design, but for my presence as a person in the company and treating the company as a product. So having discovery, define, design, and switch between them, and not in a linear way. So you should have this internal system, including your manager, CEO, and the people that you are working in. And another external system that is the users and the product that you are designing. So I think at the same time, you're working with those two separate systems, that you should have a complete different design framework for them. So these are helping me to understand my audience and refine my process and make better decisions, and like getting more involved into the company, and knowing the VUCA would help me to make it better. And this is something that I came up knowing about VUCA. Before that, I wasn't having different systems. I was only thinking about myself, the product, and the users.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love hearing that. And that actually makes me really happy to hear that you're able to take this to work. I'm curious, like you mentioned also like getting into management and leadership, looking at that kind of stuff. I'm curious, like taking on like a larger leadership role. Is this something you're also sharing with your team and helping them to also understand how to navigate these things and approach these different, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity in like different ways and different frameworks and things like that? I'm curious, how are you helping your team to navigate those things?
Right now, I don't have a big team that I'm working with. So it's a small team, but I try to implement these learnings that I have into what I'm doing. So I don't directly teach people how to do this, but I try to teach them by doing it myself into what I do.
I love that. Well, that's cool. So I want to shift a little bit into this idea that you talked about a second ago, and I think this is really important to circle back is, we talk about volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity as a framework for navigating and being more adaptable. But you brought up a really good point about how being adaptable at work, especially as a UX designer, can sometimes turn you into an order taker and just doing things other people say, and things are constantly changing. And it's not, VUCA doesn't necessarily teach us about how to influence and how to push back, right? And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Like, it was a really interesting balance. I feel like probably needs to be said more about adapting can be too bad of a thing if you're adapting and leaning more on that idea of being an order taker. So I'm curious, how do you approach that? What types of things go through your head when it comes to this, and how do you know when to adapt or when to start pushing back?
That's a great question. I learned about how to get involved more when it was the first time that someone giving me like agency to doing things for their product, and without me feeling that they're the CEO and I'm the designer. So that was the first time that I tried to think of the product as my own product and not the stakeholder product. And it gave me this feeling that, okay, I'm doing this for myself. This is my product. I want to present it the best way. So what would I want a designer that I have do for me, like in this context? And I thought that I want the designer to give me clarity because as a CEO, I don't know what I want in regarding the design aspect of the product. I have something in my mind. I can imagine it, but I can't transform it very clearly to the designer. So I want the designer to help me with that. So I started coming up with as much as solutions and as much as design ideas as I can in a limited time to give the stakeholder clarity. And I found it very useful because sometimes, like most of the time, people don't know what they want and they can't know it unless they see it in different ways and see it in a sometimes like contradictory way, not not exactly the thing they want. So it can give them clarity.
All right, UX fam, sorry to interrupt the show, but it's time for a mid-show sponsor break. This week's episode is brought to you by Case Owl, an AI tool that helps you turn your UX case studies into clear, compelling stories without spending hours rewriting your portfolio. We've partnered with Case Owl to give you 50% off their standard or power AI plans with the code BeyondUX. It's a one-time discount, so if you've been meaning to tighten up your case studies, now is the time. Head on over to caseowl.com, that's Case Owl with 2 O's, and use the code BeyondUX. And now back to the show. Yeah, so this is interesting because I love thinking about this sort of push and pull between designers. Often I feel like we want to be, we want everybody to like us. We want everybody to see us as like adaptable, and often you'll see in job descriptions they're looking for people who are adaptable and things like that. But at the same time, we want to have the the seat at the table. We want to be able to influence, and we want to be able to push for, the changes that we believe to be right. We want to fight for the users and things like that. And what I really love about what you just said a minute ago is like this idea of empathy is, and approaching it from like a VUCA framework is like a lot of times your CEO, your manager, middle managers, things like that, they're more aware of things happening outside the company than often we are as designers, especially individual contributors. And they might be seeing the market shift. They might be seeing competitors do something, and they might be feeling this outside pressure when we're sitting down here, like just, right, where's the PRD? Where's the what problem are you trying? Can I do research? That kind of stuff. And I love that idea of like thinking about empathy, but thinking about empathy through the framework of VUCA, like what kind of volatility are they dealing with? What kind of uncertainty they're dealing with? And how can I help them to navigate those things? What kind of information can I provide, or what kind of tools can I give them to help them approach these things? And I'm curious, when it comes to the way that you approach empathy for those people that you work with outside of your core team, what are you thinking? Like, what's going through your head when you're trying to build those relationships with those people?
First of all, when I go into a company, create different files for every person in the company that I'm working with. And I try from every meeting that we have, or like every message that I see, not even directly to me, but in the group chats that we have. So in the different channels, I try to understand things about that specific person. So help me build a better relationship, even indirectly with that person. Like, for example, if I know that you are a manager, that you want like clarity in everything. So I try to like give you that clarity even indirectly through another person by, for example, adding more annotation into my designs. And for every specific decisions or every specific element in the design, give you a reason. And I will have a reasoning behind that and make it very clear for you that why is this a specific thing is over there. And I get results from this method that I'm using. And it's very interesting that I see it without working directly with someone. and and it's not always appreciated directly as well, but you can see the influence and the impact you are making in a company. And that feels good.
Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, I mean, you read the book, obviously, you got the book and stuff, but the other big thing in the book is, the relationship piece is so important. And I think like, as designers and especially as individual contributors, we often feel like, oh, I don't have any control or I don't have any influence. And I just think there's so much opportunity for us as designers to to take that empathy, to understand all these things that are happening around us and like build those relationships. And I hope that you're able to change those things. And do you find that like those types of approaches have started to work better, like now that you understand some of those other frameworks than maybe before when it was just sort of like, oh, everything's a mess? I'm curious if that's like helped you at all, or has it helped you maybe talk about it? I'm curious like how some of that's helped you with your relationships with stakeholders and things like that.
I think, first of all, we should know that what we can control and what we can't control. And that's a very good like North Star to follow. And sometimes we are not aware of the things that we can affect around ourselves. Like, it's not written rule that UX designer in a company can't like give opinions about the business part or the monetization or about, I don't know, the leadership system or the way like the journey that product is going through or the user journey. But like, I mean, like the other things that we think that we can't have an opinion on, but actually we can. I'm thinking about like, what I want to say is that, like, thinking about the invisible rules that you see around yourself and trying to break them and getting more involved into what what the company's goal is and try to help everyone reach that goal, because all everyone in a team wants is for the product to be successful. So it's not about like that they don't want it. So they appreciate any opinions, any like challenging feedback or anything that can help them.
So the other thing I want to talk about too, and as we talked a little bit about, pushing back and that idea of not being an order taker, the other side of that, pushing back, works only if you have influence. And it works if people trust you and they believe you and they want to go with the thing that you said. And when I think about VUCA, what I think about is interesting too, is like a lot of it is like the day-to-day work. But when it comes to, especially like uncertainty and volatility and like the market and things like that, a lot of it sort of implies that like, there's, or not implies, but a lot of it tends to lead to more of like a strategy conversation where I understand the market and I understand the market's moving and like this is the direction we're heading now. But if we keep going that direction, our competitors are going to outdo us, or this doesn't make sense because blah blah blah. We're putting all our eggs in one basket and we don't know what's going to happen and we might fail if that one thing goes wrong. I'm curious if that approach that you're taking when we think about like volatility and VUCA and all that stuff, if like how do you approach those strategy conversations with the people outside of your core design team that you're using these like kind of this concept, this framework to help beyond just, the design decisions and more about like overall product strategy? Is that something you've been able to kind of get to with your career where you're at right now?
So I try to start my own projects, like not projects, but task for myself beyond what they give me. Like, for example, if I have this task to design this homepage, I will give another task to myself to find out about all the user flows, all the CTAs, all the everything that goes beyond that homepage, and trying to connect all of this into that without them asking me to do that. And also, these are the things that are very helpful to me. To give you another example, I, for example, I'm not responsible to write MVP narrative for the product, but I do it myself because I want to give myself clarity about the product. And by that, I can learn more about the specific parts of the product and make a better homepage through that.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think there's, a lot of times just taking initiative too. Like, for instance, like I think this is one of the reasons why design is so powerful, especially like when it comes to like visual design. Designing a thing or just like a picture, right? Well, even if it's just a wireframe, having something like that, I think is such an important tool that we could take and have a conversation to help people understand the way we think or the things that we're thinking, whether that's a diagram or wireframe or a new thing. And taking that artifact to a conversation. It's a lot more impactful when you're able to speak about it and have a visual at the same time. So I love that you're kind of thinking about it that way, and that's something like I think a lot more designers really should be thinking about. So I don't know. Anyway, I love that. So before we get out of here, I know we've been talking for a little while now. I want to pivot a little bit to just like your own personal experiences and advice that you would have for people in your position, mid to senior level designers, feeling, like things are constantly changing all the time and they don't have any kind of way to handle it or to deal with it. What is some advice that you have for some of those people dealing with that to start helping change their mindset and allow them to figure out how to start coping with some of that change?
I would say like being comfortable with making a mess and then getting your way out of it, through it, and don't afraid of breaking things.
I love that. Yeah.
Because you're not breaking things. Even if it looks like breaking, you are figuring out things, not breaking things. And learn that priorities are always shifting and it's not related to who you are and what you are doing, and not taking like these changes in a company that you are working in personally. And don't let that affect your decisions, affect your performance, or anything like that. And taking risk, I always say to even the designers that I like the designers that I'm mentoring, I always tell them take risks. Like it's not written on stone that you should do only the things that they're telling you. Do something out of the task you are getting and present it. They might accept it, they might like it, and they might don't like it. So doesn't matter. You did take your chance and you did something different. And I think people and teams will appreciate it.
So, this is something like I at least take out of a lot of what you're saying. And I don't know if this is something you've thought about personally, but you mentioned a couple of things. One, just like not being afraid to just like do something, not being afraid to break something, not being afraid to just sort of move forward. I think when we talk about like ambiguity, I feel like that's like the one key thing. And what I also hear from like your experience, your personal experience, and also your husband's experience is courage more than anything else, to be honest. Like, I don't know if you've thought about that for yourself, but like leaving Iran, a country, just regardless of the country, leaving like your home, your family, moving to a place like China, dealing with that, learning a new language, especially something from like an Indo-European language like Persian all the way to like a completely foreign language like Chinese and Mandarin, like that alone is like courageous. But being able to do that, pushing forward, going through COVID, not knowing where you're going to move, moving to the United States again from a place, like Iran, which is historically not very good ties with the U.S. That's like a very different, very foreign country. That takes a lot of courage. Just like all that stuff. Anyway, I that to me is like a huge lesson. Like I take away from your story, but then applying that to work, like if you were able to do that, why can't we just like push this feature to production? You know what I mean? Like, why can't we just do this and just test and see how it works? Like, why are we so scared to take action? Why are we so scared to speak up? Why are we so scared to, bring a new idea to the table? Why are we so scared to push back? If you can do all those things, designers out there can do those very simple, relatively incredibly easy things. And so, I don't know, that's a lesson that I take away from your story. I don't know if anybody else listening does. I hope they do. That's the whole point of having you on the show, because I feel like we have so much we could learn from your story. You and your husband's story is just like incredible. And if it doesn't speak to the VUCA and all the stuff that I'm constantly preaching about, like I don't know what does. Anyway, first, just, thank you for that. I just want to say like courage to me is like one of the big things I take away from your story. So anyway, thank you for sharing it with us today. I really do appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Awesome. So before we get out of here, I have got a few questions I like to ask all my guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. First thing that comes to your head, you don't have to think too hard about it. What is your favorite non-design book?
My favorite non-design book is Mira, but I know the name is not Mira in English. It's a transition.
Is it in Persian?
Yeah, Mira in Persian means like, oh, I can't think of anything that describes that. Sorry.
It's untranslatable. What's the book about? What is it about?
It's describing communistic environments, like in society, that it's so under control of the government, and in an exaggerated way, it's describing it, and you can feel yourself in that situation, and it's very moving. It's a very moving book. I also like Deep Work. I don't know if you read that book.
I actually have not. Deep Work, is that like just about like getting in the flow and just sort of like...
It's about how you can do better by focusing, and it gives you like different ways to focus based on different personalities.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I don't think I've ever heard of Deep Work. I'm probably surprised. I probably should, but whatever. I try not to read like business books and stuff like that. I just like, I don't know. I got so much time.
Yeah, I get
read
it.
something I actually enjoy. All right. So what is your favorite non-design podcast?
My non-design podcast is Persian one. It's like Drunken Truths.
Drunken Truths. Okay. And it's all in Persian. What is it about?
It's about it's a person who lost his father by the government in Iran, and he was in a very dark situation when he started this podcast, and he was always like getting drunk and having something when he started like recording, and it wasn't like having any specific flow or something. He was just talking, and he could overcome his depression kind of through this podcast, and it got bigger and bigger, and he started to bring people and listening to their stories. And yeah, I really like that podcast.
That's cool. So that's interesting. So is it like other Iranians, or is it other just people from all over the place? I guess you have to be able to speak Persian if you want to get on the show, but
yeah, mostly other Iranians. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's fascinating. I assume he doesn't live in Iran anymore. He's probably somewhere else.
The interesting thing is that he recently went back to Iran.
Oh, wow. Okay. Geez.
He was living in the US, in LA, and he suddenly decided to go back to Iran because he said, I don't feel belong here.
Wow. I hope he's okay. I hope everything works out for him going back. I know that's probably a very courageous thing to do. I hope he's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. All right. Next up, what is your favorite meal? This could be something you eat.
Brunch.
Brunch. Okay. What about favorite dish? You have a favorite dish?
It's also Iranian, so خورشت قیمه.
What is that?
It's a kind of stew. It has meat inside it. It has some beans, and you eat it with rice.
Okay. I love that. Yeah. Do you, so where, I don't know, I didn't ask where you live now. Where did you live?
I'm in State College, Pennsylvania.
You're in Pennsylvania. Okay. I imagine not a lot of Iranian restaurants around.
No, unfortunately, no. The closest one is in New York and in DC.
New York obviously would have one. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There used to be an Iranian place in Cincinnati of all, but it closed up
really?
like 5 years ago. Yeah. I don't think I've ever actually had Iranian food, to be honest. Like, I don't really know what
you should try it.
I would love to. If I had a place to go, I would definitely go. How would you describe Iranian food in general? Is it? I mean, it's obviously different from like places around. It's just like
so much different. I think it's like the thing that can describe it. It's like a combination of different things that you don't think that goes well together, but the mixture will turn out very good and taste good, and you don't expect it, kind of.
Yeah. So I guess is it like other Middle Eastern cuisines like around? I mean, like when people think of Middle East, I think of like Lebanese, which is more like Mediterranean, but
yeah.
I don't know. Is there any comparison to something else that you would be able to describe it?
I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm just curious.
It's kind of similar. It can be kind of similar to South American cuisines,
Okay,
kind of,
interesting. All right.
Mexican, yeah.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I've eaten at a Afghani restaurant in New York City, and that was really good. And I was surprised they had like pasta and like dumplings and things like that, and it was fantastic. But I mean, Iran, Afghanistan, you guys are sort of close, I guess. But I don't know if it's
we have so many similar things. Yeah.
I imagine Iran is very much like the United States, where like the southwestern food is very different from like Northern food and, Midwest food is very different from like, East Coast food and stuff. So I don't know. Is that this? I would imagine it's similar. Like different regions in Iran probably have completely different types of food.
Yeah, we have completely different food all over Iran. And it's interesting that even every food, it's been like made differently in different part of Iran. Like the korma sabzi that you have in like Shiraz is different from the one that you will have in Kerman, for example.
Next up, what is your favorite vacation spot?
I love a place that has mountain and the ocean and beach at the same time. Like
mountain, ocean, and beach at the same time. Where is that? Where you have a favorite spot? Have you found a place like that?
In my imagination, Seattle is kind of...
I was going to say, the only place I've ever seen that is Seattle. Okay, that's funny.
Yeah, I never traveled to Seattle, but I love to go there.
So that's funny you mentioned that. My wife and I went to Seattle, and we did a trip. This was like years ago before we had kids. And it was awesome because we went hiking in the morning and up in the mountains, waterfall, beautiful up in the mountains. And then that afternoon, we were on a beach having margaritas at a little place, like on a little bar and restaurant on the beach in Seattle. And so that's funny that you mentioned that because that is exactly, I was like, I can't think of another place like that. Like maybe like Thailand or somewhere in like, Southeast Asia, perhaps. Like there's like beautiful mountains and like rainforests and then the beach. I guess like Costa Rica's like that too a lot, like any place in like Central America, I'm sure, like kind of mountainous, and then there's a beach right there. So yeah, I don't know. I guess that place exists. I don't know. I love that. Yeah, cool. I'm a huge fan of that as well. I love that. I love a beach. I love a mountain. If I don't have to decide between the two, even better. Last question. What is your favorite design tool that is not Figma?
Figma is not my favorite design tool, so I'm thinking...
well then what's your favorite design tool? That should be easy.
I love Framer and Miro.
Framer, okay. There you go. All right. Well, Mahnaz, this has been amazing, incredible hearing your story, very inspiring. I feel like we could learn so much in how to apply those VUCA principles at work just from hearing your experience. And I am so happy to hear that like you discovered the concepts in VUCA and like are applying that to your personal life and also at work. So that makes me really great to hear. Before we get out of here, we mentioned in your bio, you have some courses and you have some other stuff that you do on the side. Before we get out of here, give yourself a plug. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Well, they can first find me on LinkedIn, my name, and Mahnaz Hajesmaeili. And I'm also on ADP list, mentoring junior designers. I have a course on Maven that I co-instruct with John Gossif. And I have 2 podcasts, like one that I co-host and host, Swarmathon and Designathon. They're both like in all the platform on the podcast platforms. And they can email me, like even uxonward@gmail.com.
I love it. And so we will include all that stuff in the show notes. I feel like most Americans, at least, are going to have a hard time just figuring out how to pronounce or how to spell your name. So we'll put everything in the show notes, and so you can find Mahnaz there. But Mahnaz, thank you so much for coming on again. I really appreciate it. Very inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, y'all. That's it for Mahnaz and me for today. If this episode got you thinking about VUCA in your daily life, I'd love to hear your take. Shoot me a message on LinkedIn or shoot me an email at hello@beyonduxdesign.com. I'd love to hear from you. And if the show's been helpful, the best way to support it is simple. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a quick review. It helps me more than you know. And don't forget, tell your mom and them. And if you want to go a step further and help keep the show independent and ad-free, check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. You'll get early access to episodes and the full video archive for as little as $5 a month. Everything else, episodes, newsletter, show notes, lives at beyonduxdesign.com. And don't forget, if you're tired of staring at a blank Figma canvas, Mobbin gives you access to over 400,000 beautifully designed UI screens and user flows with a library that grows bigger every week. Kickstart your creativity, streamline your workflow, and level up your design process. Visit mobbin.com/beyondux to get 20% off Mobbin Pro and never run out of inspiration again. Until next time, remember, you're more than a designer because there's more to UX in design. I'll see you around. Take care, y'all. I always wonder what like American restaurants are like in like other countries, like hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza, like tacos. Like what is an American, I don't know. It's kind of the same way. Like how do you classify
China,
American
it was
food?
it was so customized to Chinese food.
Sure.
You can't imagine how McDonald's
That's
The
hilarious.
taste in China, it doesn't look like what it is here.
Yeah, I heard in China they have a thing called New Orleans chicken wings, which are like not something that people in New Orleans eat. I'm originally from New Orleans, and it's like a made up like Chinese dish that's it's like General Tso's chicken. Like it's an American Chinese thing. Like nobody in China is eating General Tso's chicken, but it's on like every single Chinese restaurant menu in the entire country, you know? So it's just kind of funny how we do that kind of thing.